We heard our PE coach, like with the little kids, and he was like, go! I didn't want to die.
Oh, your video?
Yeah, video.
Oh!
So now, say how much fun you having, baby.
Regular shot. Hi, we're having such a good time.
We have been having a good time.
This is 53-year-old Cedric Anderson, a United States Navy veteran from Riverside, California, gushing about his new bride during what should have been one of the happiest moments of their lives together. Just 73 days after this video was recorded, Cedric would walk into his wife's elementary school classroom and end both of them in the most gruesome ways possible. Before I take you into that classroom on April 10th, 2017, where everything would come crashing down in the most devastating way possible, let me rewind to late January of that same year, where the honeymoon phase, both literal and metaphorical, was about to give way to something sinister that Karen Elaine Smith never saw coming.
There's no one who would have been less deserving of this kind of thing than Karen was. She was just a person who was always doing what she was supposed to be doing all the time. She was always doing the right thing. So this is kind of an ultimate irony. She was a very quiet, very conservative person. If you look in the dictionary for good girl, there's her picture. I mean, she was just the embodiment of reasonableness and conservatism and godliness and conservative Christianity with a big heart. And that points exactly to the compassion that was the very heartbeat of her life. That was the center of who she was, to take care of people. She was gentle and soft-spoken and a quiet person. I was very surprised to find that they were proceeding with the wedding.
On January 28, 2017, Cedric Charles Anderson and Karen Elaine Smith exchanged vows, sealing what appeared to be a beautiful love story that had been 4 years in the making. The couple had been dating since approximately 2013, and by all outward appearances, their relationship seemed stable, committed, and filled with genuine affection. Karen was a devoted special education teacher at North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino, California, and was a patient, caring woman who had dedicated her life to working with her students who had learning disabilities. At 53 years old, she had 4 adult children from a previous 21-year marriage that had ended back in 2009, and she had entered the teaching profession later in life after raising her family. Her mother, Irma Sykes, would later describe Karen as a very fine person and a devout Christian who kept her personal struggles intensely private, never wanting to burden others with her problems or jeopardize her professional reputation. Cedric, also 53, presented himself as the perfect partner. His social media presence painted a picture of a man deeply in love, constantly posting affectionate photographs and heartfelt messages about his new wife on Facebook. Just 3 weeks before the tragedy, on March 11, 2017, Anderson posted on Facebook calling Karen an angel, a stark contrast to the private nightmare that was already unfolding behind closed doors. The honeymoon footage from Sedona, Arizona shows a couple seemingly enjoying outdoor adventures, laughing together and making plans for their future. But what the camera didn't capture was the transformation that was already beginning to take place in their relationship.
Me and my baby's on our honeymoon.
Oh, your video?
Yeah, video.
Oh!
So now, say how much fun you having, baby.
Regular shot. Hi, we're having such a good time.
We have been having a good time.
Yeah.
She got me hiking. Ooh, out here in Sedona. Us and all the folks.
Yeah, we're gonna do a lot more.
Us and all the folks. We out here hiking.
Within 3 weeks of their wedding day, the marriage began to deteriorate at an alarming rate. Anderson began accusing Karen of infidelity, launching into verbal tirades and making threats that grew increasingly disturbing. His controlling behavior, which may have been subtle during their 4-year courtship, suddenly became impossible to ignore or dismiss. Karen's family immediately recognized the danger. Irma Sykes, Karen's mother, would urge her daughter to leave the marriage immediately, telling her that this man was not who they had all believed him to be. She thought she had a wonderful husband, but she found out he was not wonderful at all, Sykes would later reveal to reporters, the pain and regret evident in her words.
Okay, Tim.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah.
It is delicious.
Happy wives, happy husbands.
Yeah, happy wives,
The
happy
new members club. Tim and Karen, we're having fun. Thanks a lot.
By mid-March 2017, barely 6 weeks after exchanging vows, Karen made the decision to leave. She moved out of the home she briefly shared with Cedric and relocated to stay with family members, splitting her time between relatives' homes in Riverside and Moreno Valley. She confided in only her closest family members about the abuse she was experiencing, maintaining her characteristic privacy, even in the face of escalating danger. Anderson's response to the separation was a disturbing mix of desperate attempts at reconciliation and escalating threats. Despite the physical distance Karen had created, Cedric made repeated attempts to contact her, driving past her daughter's home where she was staying multiple times, sending countless text messages, 27 unanswered texts on April 9th alone, the day before he would take her life, declaring his love while simultaneously making statements that should have been recognized as dangerous warning signs. One acquaintance whom Anderson had confided in at a gas station just 2 weeks before the shooting later reported that Cedric had vented about his marital problems, made choking gestures when discussing his wife, and even mentioned threats to, quote, kill the family. What makes this case particularly chilling is the duplicity Anderson maintained until the very end. While privately stalking his estranged wife and making increasingly disturbing statements to acquaintances, he continued to post loving messages about Karen on social media, fooling friends, church members, and even some family members who weren't privy to the private horror Karen was experiencing.
What I love about my wife, boy, she is making me really happy. She knows when to ignore me. Well, that makes a happy marriage.
April 10, 2017 started as an ordinary morning afternoon at North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino, California. The school, which served approximately 580 students from kindergarten through 6th grade, was already operating under heightened security protocols. San Bernardino had been the site of a devastating terrorist attack just 16 months earlier in December 2015, when 14 people were killed and 22 seriously injured in a shooting at the Inland Regional Center. The community was still healing from that trauma, and schools had implemented various safety measures in response. But on this particular morning, those security protocols would prove tragically inadequate against a threat that came not from an unknown external terrorist, but from someone who had legitimate access to the school, a teacher's husband. At approximately 10:27 in the morning, 911 calls began flooding into the San Bernardino Police Department. Multiple callers reported hearing gunshots inside the school building, specifically coming from classroom B1, Karen Elaine Smith's special education classroom. What those frantic callers were reporting was the result of Cedric Anderson's carefully planned attack on his estranged wife. Anderson had arrived at the school earlier that morning with a specific, calculated plan. He signed in at the front office, telling staff that he was there to drop off an item for his wife. This was not an unusual occurrence. Spouses occasionally visited to bring forgotten items or deliver messages. The fact that Anderson and Karen were separated was not widely known at the school, as Karen had kept her domestic situation private. So Anderson proceeded directly to his wife's classroom, where 15 special needs students, ranging from 1st through 4th grade, were engaged in their lessons, supported by Karen and 2 teacher's aides. What happened next would traumatize every single person in that room. He discharged 10 rounds in total after reloading the weapon once. His target was singular and specific, Karen Elaine Smith. He shot her multiple times, ensuring that his estranged wife would not survive. But in his rage-fueled attack, Anderson also struck 2 young students who were positioned behind their teacher. 8-year-old Jonathan Alfredo Martinez and a 9-year-old boy were hit by the gunfire. Innocent children who became collateral damage in a domestic violence murder that never should have been able to reach them inside their school. The surviving 13 students and 2 aides fled the classroom in absolute terror, some of them covered in blood, others in complete shock at what they had just witnessed. After ensuring that Karen was dead and making no attempt whatsoever to flee the scene, Anderson turned the weapon on himself, dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound right there in the classroom where he had just destroyed so many lives. The police response was remarkably swift. Officers arrived on the scene within 7 minutes of the initial 911 calls, an impressive response time that likely prevented even more casualties had Anderson chosen to continue his rampage. 8 officers immediately secured the perimeter, evacuated the remaining students and staff, and began the grim process of assessing the carnage inside classroom B1. Cedric Bernardino Police Chief Jarek Bergouin arrived shortly thereafter and immediately classified the incident as a domestic-related murder-suicide, based on witness statements, the obvious relationship between the shooter and the primary victim, and the lack of any indication that Anderson had targeted anyone else.
At 10:27 this morning, we received a report of a at North Park Elementary. So the response was about 7 minutes. Within minutes of that, we had about the first 8 police officers on scene. They immediately went in. What had happened is a suspect by the name of Cedric Anderson, 53 years old. He's a resident of Riverside. The husband of the teacher of the classroom, who's identified as Karen Elaine Smith. She too is 53 years old. Cedric entered the classroom, and from what we understand, without saying anything, armed with a large caliber revolver, opened fire on his wife. She was in that exchange. There are 2 students in the classroom that were behind the teacher that were struck by fire. One of those children is identified as Jonathan Martinez, common spelling. He's 8 years old. He was taken to Loma Linda University Medical Center via helicopter, airlifted out almost immediately as soon as we can get resources there. Tragically, he has passed away. There, the second student that was in the classroom that was struck by fire is a 9-year-old student. I'm not going to release his name at this time. I'm told that he is in stable condition at the hospital. After that exchange, the suspect turned on himself and he killed himself.
There's no words to describe how we felt. My daughter started seeing stories on Snap that there was a at my daughter's school. As soon as I was able to, I just rushed over here. We had no information. They were not giving us the correct information. No official was coming out to explain any of it. They just had us walking back to the gym. As we got there, they told us they were in Cal State, so we had to go to Cal State. Then they informed us to stay here. The kids were being transported to Cal State, and then, but we had no news. Maybe, I'm going to say about 2-3 hours after waiting, I was informed that my daughter was actually in the classroom where the went in. My daughter just mentioned she saw one of her little friends get in the back. She had blood all over. He had blood all over. As it is, my daughter has special needs. This classroom that they were in is with students with special needs. I don't know. I don't know how else, it's going to affect her.
Parents' worst nightmare to think that it's happening in your daughter's school, or, something could be happening to her.
And all she was told was there was a bad man in the class.
Any parent that needs some help, therapy, whatever we need to do to get through this tragedy in San Bernardino County, the district attorney's office is there with my partners and the mayor and our board members and our assembly and congressmen here to help get us through this tragic event.
I've been over here for almost 2 hours just waiting for them to finally get him to me, so I'm just happy that he's safe and everything's good. I don't know what happened. I don't even know who got I'm just grateful and blessed that he's fine. That's all I'm after, because this neighborhood needs to be fixed. I don't know who would even go into an elementary school, of all things, and up. What's wrong with people's minds these days?
Procedures were followed by staff. So the person was confirmed to be who they said to be. They were a known person by staff, and so for that reason they were admitted to the campus.
As a level 1 trauma center, we're prepared to take care of mass casualty incidents. That being said, we certainly hate to have to take care of something like this, where we understand that families' lives have been impacted irretrievably today.
Parents, I have a message for you. I would like you to please work with your young child to keep things as normal as possible. Be willing to listen to their story, and be willing to listen to their story multiple times. Reassure them that the danger that they've faced is past, and also continue to model for them healthy ways to cope with what they're feeling.
Once again, I'd like to commend our police officers and the great leadership of Superintendent Dale Marsden, who has been an exemplary leader and administrator in our community. I thank all the electeds that have reached out to our city and expressed their condolences, their support, and their offer of prayers on behalf of our community at this time.
The 2 wounded children were rushed to nearby hospitals. The 9-year-old boy, later identified as Nolan Brandy, had sustained serious injuries, including a broken rib and damage to his liver and kidneys, but his prognosis was cautiously optimistic. Jonathan Martinez, however, had suffered devastating injuries. The 8-year-old, who had Williams syndrome, a genetic disorder causing developmental delays, had multiple perforated organs from the gunshot wounds. He was airlifted to Loma Linda University Medical Center, where trauma surgeons fought desperately to save his young life. The next day, April 11, 2017, Jonathan Alfredo Martinez died from his injuries, becoming the third fatality in a tragedy that should have been prevented. His family, already dealing with the challenges of raising a child with special needs, now faced the unimaginable grief of planning their son's funeral because a man decided to carry out his murderous rage in an elementary school classroom.
He's the San Bernardino school Cedric Anderson and his wife, school teacher Karen Smith, lovingly enjoying their honeymoon in Sedona, Arizona.
We're having a ball. It's been nice.
Karen was a beautiful bride when she said "I do" to the 53-year-old former pastor and military vet.
Happy wives, happy husbands.
Here's Jim Murray.
After they got married on January 28th, Cedric Anderson moved into his wife's home in a gated community. But very quickly, the marriage had problems. Just a few weeks ago, Karen Smith decided she had no choice but to seek a divorce.
Now, investigators want to know how Anderson, in a matter of 2.5 months, went from gushing groom to the madman who strode into his wife's classroom at North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino, her student, and wounding a second child.
Possible active North Park Elementary.
This is exclusive video of Karen Smith singing in her church choir, given to us by her grieving cousin, Jessica Alexander.
Karen was a beautiful person. When she told us she was getting married, I said, "You look so happy."
Did you have any sense of the relationship taking a turn?
You know, I really didn't. Karen was a very quiet, very private person.
The scene at the school was total chaos as children were reunited with relieved parents.
We heard our PE coach, with the little kids, and he was like, "Go!" I didn't want to.
Cell phone video captures paramedics furiously working to save the life of 8-year-old Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan from his injuries. A sweet boy gone much too soon for no reason whatsoever.
Outside the school, chaos reigned as parents received fragmented information about an active shooter situation. Many parents complained that they received no official notification from the school and learned about the shooting only through word of mouth or media reports, adding to their panic and frustration. They waited for hours, desperate for any information about their children, unsure whether their own child was safe or had been caught in the violence. The scene was a nightmare of ambulances, police cars, fire trucks, helicopters, and terrified parents demanding answers that officials couldn't immediately provide. When families were finally reunited with their children, the trauma was immediately evident.
At a San Bernardino elementary school, a man opens fire in a classroom. A special needs teacher and a student. And now we're learning the teacher was his estranged wife. Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Cook.
And I'm Ken Bastida. Just minutes ago, authorities releasing pictures of the gunman, 53-year-old Cedric Anderson, and that teacher, Anderson's wife, Karen Elaine Smith. Now, the deadly happened this morning at North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino. Reporter Danielle Nottingham with the latest from the scene.
Ken, officials have identified the gunman as 53-year-old Cedric Anderson. They say he walked into a special needs classroom and killed his wife, 53-year-old Karen Smith. Another student standing behind her was shot. That student later died in the hospital from their injuries, and another student is in the hospital with injuries this evening.
It's help them to find their children right now, Lord.
Some parents prayed while others comforted each other, waiting to hear if their children were safe.
Nervous, scared, hoping everybody's okay.
San Bernardino police say a gunman shot and killed a teacher in a classroom at North